I drink your milkshake.
I'm a huge fan of the simulator genre, whether that's evident or not. And the funny thing is, I was only talking about strictly simulator games. I didn't even touch on Tycoon games. Oh. Wait, that was real? The written history of gaming would not be complete without the inclusion of Tycoon games. Since the early 90s, Tycoon games have remained a mainstay of the modern gaming culture. Ask any elder millennial about what their favorite games were back in the Y2K years, and you're bound to hear the word Tycoon thrown in there along with GoldenEye and Spyro. But for such a recognizable tagline, what even is a Tycoon game? What happened to them? Where did they go? Who drank my milkshake? Was it you, Cotton Eye Joe? In order to actually explain what a Tycoon game is, I had to go way back, like way back, and find an old friend of mine and have them come in to help me explain this. So, bear with me here. Sir Shotsman Esquire. Yes. Thank you for having me. Tycoon games. What a concept. You know, my father was a tycoon. He owned 47,000 acres of maple syrup groves. I used to ride my horse through the pump jacks as a wee child, yes. Wonderful fun. Only the finest syrup for my French toast growing up, I tell you that much. Why am I here again? What are Tycoon games? Oh, of course. Tycoon games are business simulation games. Pure and simple. Make money, make a business. Make it profitable. The art of being a tycoon. Very simple. But you know it's not simple. Maple syrup pumping, I tell you this much. The pancake pirates were always trying to take Alright, that's enough out of you, you fancy mustache having Sally. Get out of here. How dare you! Business simulation games, or often shortened down to tycoon games, are a much more popular genre than you might think. Okay, sure, a lot of modern games don't go by the title of tycoon game, but I'm willing to bet that a lot of your favorite games at least draw from the genre for a little bit of inspiration. Modern games are rarely ever just one genre. Take Stardew Valley, for example. I mean, in that game you balance crop prices with farm income. By that definition, Stardew Valley is full of tycoonitude. And yes, I did just make that up, and no, it's not going away. Because the tycoon genre is so vast, we're going to focus today on just a few that I feel truly stand out when you look back at the history of them. Whether that means that they were just genre-defining cornerstones or just games that I personally really cared about. But if we really want to talk about the beginning of this genre, we have to go back to the very beginning, 1963. My mom was like 5 years old, and it also saw the spawning of the very first business simulation game, Intopia. Intopia was a program that was created to help teach college students how to grasp business simulation and management. Over the course of the game, up to 100 players have a business that they have located in one of 4 countries, and their entire goal is to just be successful. I have no idea how it works. I genuinely could not find very much on it without the bare minimum bit of details. All I know is it works. It really works. It works so well that it's been used for almost 60 years in over 50 countries. Yeah, Ma, I got an MBA by playing video games. Look it up, it's possible and it's a thing. But if you're looking for something that's a little less teachery and more of an actual gamey game, in 1964, a game called the Sumerian game was released. It was a text-based resource management game made by IBM and some 4th grade teacher. The game takes place in the ancient nation of Sumer, land of bronze, ziggurats, and some guy named Gilgamesh. Over time, the Sumerian game was remade, removed from circulation, recreated from description alone, copied by every single programmer in the early 70s apparently, inspired hundreds of knockoffs, inspired the earliest city builder games, and at one point led to the first female game designer in history, Mabel Addis. Sadly, the original source code for the game has long been lost to the sands of time. But one hell of a legacy, right? Smash cut to 1990, and the company called Microprose is looking to follow up their success off a game called Civilization, so they ring up their little buddy Sid Meier for another banger of an idea. Fucking just, railroads. Everybody loves railroads. Make a game about railroads. And just like that, Sid Meier's Railroad Tycoon was born. True story, by the way. Railroad Tycoon was a landmark game, and not just because it had the name of some dude with an admittedly infectious smile on it. It was the first time that the word tycoon was put in a game title, and as we know, it would not be the last. It won Computer Gaming World's Game of the Year in 1990, and it won the Golden Joystick for PC Game of the Year. It went on to sell 400,000 units in an era where less than 20% of American households had a personal computer. A figure so bonkers that in 1993 they remade the game, made it better, just to sell it a bit more. Just good idea, Sid, you're so cute. 1993 also saw the release of Sim Farm from Maxis. Yes, that Maxis. Sadly, Will Wright had nothing to do with the creation of this game, as exemplified by its it's alright critical reception and sales. Needless to say, Sim Farm was a spin-off of Sim City, but way less big picture and more focused on the day-to-day life of a rural farmer. Investing in crops, livestock, preparing for the harshness of winter. Farming is not easy, and although it was a landmark game for the genre, it was just too monotonous and most people didn't really like it. But 1 year later, in 1994, we had a game that was released that was truly, truly dear to my heart. Theme Park by Bullfrog. Unlike Sim Farm, which didn't include Will Wright at all, this one, Theme Park? Theme Park had the bad boy of gaming himself. Peter motherfucking wheeling and dealing, Learjet flying, limousine riding, kiss stealing, son of a gun Molyneux. Woo! He had his fingerprints all up on this one. It's so stupid, but whatever. Not only was Theme Park the first amusement park simulation game, but it was the first game to be released on literally every platform under the sun, from the Amiga to the Jaguar. Moneybags Molyneux was gonna get that paper, baby. If we're being honest, the Theme series is baller. I mean, Theme Hospital is a lot dear to a lot of people's hearts, but me personally, it was the Scholastic Book Fair. Yeah, Nakey Jakey did a video on that. You should go and check that one out too. But the book fair had video games, and I got Theme Park. It was called Sim Theme Park in North America, and I got it, and I must have played that game for ages. It's kind of like RollerCoaster Tycoon, but it's just way more simplified and way more has more personality. And honestly, really, really love it. Really miss it. Good job, Peter. 1994 also saw the release of a game called Transport Tycoon. It was made by one 27-year-old guy named Chris Sawyer. Remember that guy because he's gonna come up later. Transport Tycoon was huge. It was admittedly inspired entirely by Sid Meier's Railroad Tycoon, but Microprose ended up publishing the game completely on the backs of the fact that they thought it was beautiful and they loved it. With modern companies that are shut down, anybody who will make a fan game or anything like that, seeing a company like Microprose do this, it's just making Sid Meier look cuter and cuter. Transport Tycoon was later re-released as OpenTTD, which is still reasonably popular today. It's available on Steam, you can download it directly, but here's a hint: if you want to make big money, just start an airport. Just make an airport, because it breaks the game, easy clap. In 1996, Harvest Moon was released, and before you call me a beta simp cuck weeb boy, if Sim Farm counts, Harvest Moon counts, alright? Just because it's Japanese and it has RPG elements doesn't mean that it can't be considered a tycoon game. It's called cultural fusion. Learn something. It's also gorgeous, even by today's standards. I mean, look at that sprite work. Skipping ahead though to 1999, we reach the true golden era of tycoon games. Computers are moved out of DOS and Windows 95, blowing our minds with Windows 98 and its metal startup sound. Fuck yeah, bro. But before that, though, our old buddy Chris Sawyer, remember the one I said, remember? Yeah, that guy. He was not content with just one iconic video game. No! He needed another one and he was busy. Still working alone, Chris was plugging away and he created what would eventually be one of the most iconic video game releases of the late 90s and early 2000s. RollerCoaster Tycoon. Take Theme Park from 5 years before that and just chuck it in the trash, because RCT is here now. In its first year, RollerCoaster Tycoon sold over 700,000 copies. Think about that. In the year 2000, roughly 51% of American households had a home computer. Now, let's say hypothetically that every single one of those 700,000 copies was sold in America. That means that roughly 1.3% of American households had a copy of RollerCoaster Tycoon, which honestly, when you say it like that, does not sound like much, but these sales numbers are bananas. Chris Sawyer, already responsible for a wildly popular, albeit niche, game, ends up making a second iconic game. A game that to this day is still in the top 35 best-selling PC games of all time. And it's probably even higher. I say probably higher because we don't actually have sales figures on it. Like the most accurate number I can find is from 2002. But the fact that the game is now available on your phone, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that this is probably in the top 15. Top 20 is already an easy bet, and if that's so, I'm taking the over. Or would it be the under? In 2002, we saw the sequel to it, RollerCoaster Tycoon 2, which considered even better. And then even later than that, we saw Open RCT 2, which is an open source game that's still getting updates for it, released to this day. Even if you don't have fond memories of RollerCoaster Tycoon or its sequel, somebody you know does, I guarantee that. They were just fun games made for the love of the craft and the passion of it. Chris Sawyer himself said that he did it just because he's a big fan of amusement parks and roller coasters. He's ridden over 640 of them, and yeah, that's a lot of roller coasters. And honestly, even if RollerCoaster Tycoon was not the iconic game that it is today, it would still have a place in internet culture for giving us the Mr. Bones Wild Ride green text. But sadly, the golden age of Tycoon games comes to an end, I believe, in 2004 with the release of Zoo Tycoon 2, a sequel to 2001's Zoo Tycoon. The original Zoo Tycoon was, for lack of a better term, a donda. Kinda mid. Somebody's gonna be mad about that. It wasn't the first Zoo game. That belongs to Dino Park back in 1990. It was pretty basic, not much to do. Graphics were pretty bland, even by 2001 standards. Thankfully though, the sequel fixed a lot of these issues. Not enough to fix the sales numbers, but to those of us that actually played Zoo Tycoon 2 back in the day, we have fond memories of it. And not just because you could release deer into the T-Rex cage, although that definitely helped. And with that, the heyday of Tycoon games comes to a close. After a 15-year run that saw releases from some of gaming's most iconic publishers and developers, Tycoon games, as we knew them, started to die out slowly. But not unlike a 1994 Camry that gets an oil change every 4,000 miles, Tycoon games simply refuse to die. Their glory days are long behind them, but to this day we still see the releases of some absolute slappers of the genre. Games like Game Dev Tycoon, EVE Online, Prison Architect, Jurassic World Evolution, Planet Coaster, Planet Zoo, Parkitect, Dyson Sphere Program, Factorio, and the list just keeps going on, honestly. I personally credit Tycoon games with teaching me a more critical and analytical way of thinking. By needing to balance things like income over expenditures to keep my theme park afloat when I was 9, it helps me do things like balance my checking account now when I'm 29. fucking idiot, you just dated yourself. You're too old for this shit. You're a boomer. You're a boomer. In much the same way that studies show that gaming for children helps them develop their hand-eye coordination, I believe that tycoon games and games like them help develop my mental acuity as well with analytical thinking. Possibly explaining why I simply just refuse to buy new shoes or buy games at full price. Tycoon games are part of my backstory, honestly. I can't think of a time in my life back when through my gaming career that I did not want to play a game like a tycoon game. As far as I know, my first favorite game was Pokemon, and after that, I'm pretty sure it was RollerCoaster Tycoon. Growing up in the 90s, I told you I was going to bring that up all the time. It really was just a golden age for exploration in gaming. It wasn't all about money, it was still a lot about passion. So you would get games like RollerCoaster Tycoon made by a guy who just really likes roller coasters. To this day, I know countless people that don't even like video games, but they like RollerCoaster Tycoon. Every year, the Yogscast has their Jingle Jam event in December, and they always have an open TTD event, and it gets thousands of views. Hell, it inspired me to download the game and play it myself. Not often, but I have it. Tycoon games are fun, man. Give them a try sometime if you haven't. Because I promise you, a game that you like, it's drawn inspiration from them, at least in some way. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. If you enjoyed this, please like and comment on it, and if you're not subscribed, go ahead and do yourself a favor and do that. It gives me a lot of motivation, and it really helps me out. I have a lot of ideas, and I'm looking forward to making more videos in the future. One love.